Well, gentlemen, we're here. I want to say thanks to my 0.00001 female viewership. It's probably a fan of mine out there that's logged in underneath his girlfriend or wife's account. What we're looking at here is a TX800. Internally, this thing is really pretty. Let's get down in here and let's go look at it. Internally, this thing is in great shape. I mean, it's in really good shape. It's really clean. There's not a lot of frickin' solder work, nothing ugly in here. But externally, there's quite a few things we got to work on here. Our front fan's about ready to fall out. Definitely needs new coax connectors on it. But let's take a look at our faceplate here. Now we're going to ignore this gobbledygook here because that's just the way they did things. This is the thermal cutout sensor. The faceplate is bowed in right here. And that's attached to the on-off switch that's here. Now if we look down the length of the switches, we'll see that a little kicked up. So what I've got to do is I've got to disconnect this switch, and I got to disconnect all the shit that's hooked up to it, pull the switch out, and then I got to punch the face out and re-square the face. It sounds real easy, but it's not that easy. It's quite a bit of work. I don't know if the fans work. I don't know if the pills are good. I don't know. But we're going to know by the end of this. I don't see any burnt 10 ohmer resistors in this thing anywhere. I don't see anything burnt or discolored or sad. I see a fan that's being held in by 2 screws and they're loose. I see a little bit of rust. I see a little bit of dirt. It's okay. I have the technology. We can make that better. Bias resistor needs to be straightened up. Oh, that's fixed. The main thing is going to be the lid. This little notch here in the corner. Leaves us with an opening up here in the front. That could be a dick. Turn the cabinet around and be like, oh, it's fixed. Then the holes don't line up. So what do I want to do? Do I just want to break a new cabinet lid for this thing, or do I want to clean this all up, sand and prep all of this lid, get myself out a little tiny piece of metal, and just tack in a new corner, weld it up, sand it down, and repaint the lid? Probably because I don't feel like going anywhere and paying somebody money to re-break a lid, which would be probably less time and a whole lot less effort. I'd get a lid broken, but I don't know, man. I'm fighting that urge. I want to just bust my welder out, weld this up, sand it down, and be like, look at what I did. Although it'd be much easier to go to my metal fab shop and have them break me out a new lid. We'll come back to that. For right now, let's get this mess cleaned up. I don't understand what's going on here. We'll get this fixed up. We're going to get this fixed. Look at the new coax connectors put in it, which I've already got sitting out here. Get them slammed in here real quick. And let's see if the old girl works. Well, we got her all cleaned up. We got the new coax connectors installed. I went ahead and replaced all the hardware on the whole amplifier. It's external because it was all nasty and rusted, like rusticles. Anyhow, put brand new mounting hardware on the side, cleaned up the fan mess. What was going on inside of there was a bunch of electrical tape ugliness. Apparently at some point or another this fan got changed out, and well, I'm just glad that they did kind of a sloppy job at it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get the Teflon to come up past the heat sink, this little tubing here. Let's see. Got the faceplate all banged out. Got all the LEDs put back in it. There's a couple little blemishes here from the paint chipping just a little bit, but we put a little bit of Sharpie on that, so it'll be fine. I was able to get the switches cleaned out pretty good. Apparently, at some point or another, the switches have gotten a little bit wet. but got most of the corrosion out of the inside of all the switches, and then went ahead and oiled all the switches, so we've got that covered. Zip tied down the capacitor on the inside. Popped up some parts that got pushed down at some point or another when somebody else was in here, and we've got it hooked up at the moment. Got two, 8-gauge wire going off over here to the bench power supply. Now we've got all that stuff covered, let's talk about this. Let's zoom in here real quick. This is our on-off switch. I'm going to flick this, but what we need to be focused on here is what's happening with the relay. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer. Let's turn on the amp. You see that? The amp is now on, but we're stuck in transmit. We don't know if the preamp works. We do know that the sideband delay is working, but we are stuck hard in transmit. So down buried inside the guts of this thing, right here, like down in here, that is the top of our keying transistor right there. That transistor has gone open. It's gonna be a little bit of a challenge to get. So first I have to create the room to work. It's not like I can go in here and just push a couple wires out of the way. I mean, I guess in theory I could just go in there and dike off the top of the transistor legs, but that's not really how I work. So what I've got to do now is I've got to unsolder. I've done this both ways. Okay, I've done this several times. I've worked on a couple of these over the years, let's just say. The guy that's worked on 7,000 or 8,000 boxes at this point. The easiest way to do this is to get the big soldering iron out, and we unsolder the wires out of this eyelet, and we slip the wires out of the way. We unsolder this wire and we unsolder this wire. And we fold everything up out of the way, and then we have to zip tie it out of the way. Now, very carefully, we got to go in here and we got to remove that transistor, which is a combination of soldering iron and hot air device. We slide that transistor out and then we check it. We don't just assume it's bad, we check it. Because if we can slide that transistor out and it still tests good, it means somewhere else in here something else has gone to ground. But I'm just not seeing it. Like I said in the previous video, the one that's just before this on the TX300, I spent a lot of time working with the key-in circuit on that box. So this uses the 2N3907 transistor. We're going to replace it with a 2N2906, which is still a PNP. It's still a high current switch, but it's more geared towards an amplifier than it is a switch. But it's a little bit higher quality transistor. It's almost all the same parameters. So let's go ahead and let's power this thing down. So we're going to unplug it. Let's pull the coax off of it. The amp does work, by the way. We tested that. I'm getting 800 and some watts out of it on high with 30 watts of drive. So I know that going in. But for right now, usually when the relay latches up like that, that transistor, the key-in transistor's popped. A lot of different things can cause that. Either it be the proximity to somebody else. Let's say you're parked right next to somebody else, they key up, they blow out your transistor. It happens. It gets hooked up backwards, it happens. Transistor gets some kind of electric shock to it and it shorts itself open. All of those things happen. We don't know what caused this one to die. We just know that that circuit is latched open. It's not an oscillation issue, because we can sit here and look at our amp gauge and it's not pulling any current. We just know that we're turning it on, turning it off, and when we turn it on, that relay goes into transmit. We see it all the time with Texas Stars, we see it all the time with Palomars, and every once in a while we'll see it with the X-Force Dave made Fat Boy, my style build. Just happens, part of life. So let's boogie on down with it. Let's get this pole pulled out, and let's get in there and get to work. I love these little amps because, well, In my day, the 667 was king, and then these things started filtering up around Idaho, and we're like, holy cow, 900 watts is 300 more than the 667 could ever do, with the same parts. And then Dave came along, or X-Force, or whatever, and somebody read the Motorola Engineering Hand Guide anyhow, and all of a sudden the 4-pill does 1,000. Now it's a 1,200 watt box. Hell, by the time I'm ready to retire, the 42879s will do 3.21 gigawatts. It is what it is. I love these things, but they are a pain in the ass to work on. They really are. But, like I said, I love them, and there's a huge cult following for these things. Let's watch the relay. Goes through its startup cycle. Let's watch it again. Everything's working the way it should. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's take a look for here. 1,000 watt slug and peak. At 1, 2, and about 5 bird. It's about 25 watts, 5 bird. We're in low, and hold on, before we get too carried away, we'll take the 5 watt slug reading a verse back from the bird 10,000 watt dummy load. We're going to turn it so it reads forward. We're going to put 1 watt in it. 1. Okay? Turn the amp on. Boop. In the corner. Okay. So we're on low with a 1 watt carrier going in, gets us about 10 watts coming out. 5-10 watts. Medium is about 60 watts and high is 100. So with 30 watts of drive, about 800, medium, about 745, about 700 on low. So we got that going for us. Now what we're listening to is how well the preamp's working. So let's keep an eye here on these relays. Perfect. Switch that up to AM. Okay, enough of that. Pardon me, we'll switch this down to sideband. We'll click over to sideband. On sideband, we're going to get oh, left the preamp on. Preamp off. 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2. Kick the amp back on and low. Audio. That's 625 watts on sideband. 7 and some change. 1 2 1 2 1 2. About 800 on the peak meter and about 600 on the average. So you take from that what you want. All I know is little heat sink's having to do a lot of work now. It's having to dissipate a lot of heat, so I should probably turn this right way around. Okay, so everything on this is working. Now we've just got the cosmetic issue of the lid to fix. I'll be honest with you, I think tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up, I'm going to go down to my metal supply place, and I'm going to have them break me a new lid, and we will see you tomorrow. Okay. Front, back. It's so tight. Well, it's going to work out perfect. Tight as tight can be, but it's going to work. I just picked up the coolest thing. I was down at our local electronic recycler joint, and they had a Henry solid state 70 centimeter amplifier in there. 200 watts of love, continuous duty. I was like, man, I gotta buy this. So that'll be in a future YouTube video. And you ask yourself right now, whoa, good's that? 2 meter, 70 centimeter, 200 watt amplifier. Can we say GMRS? Can we say 70 centimeter, 200 watt amplifier? Hell yeah. I got to thank one of you guys out there in video land for helping me find it. I was walking through your museum, and this guy goes, hey, what's going on, Video Star? And it ended up being one of my local guys that watches the videos, and we were sitting there BSing as we were walking through the aisles, and I looked around, oh, look at that, it's a Henry amp. So, if it wasn't for him, I was about ready to bounce. He's what pulled me back in there to keep looking, and I found this little gem sitting on the shelf. I think that's friggin' awesome. So, to you, sir, I say thank you. All right, let's go paint this thing. I went ahead and I added feet. Because I wanted to. That's all. Okay, let me see if I can manhandle this thing onto that thing. Well, that's it. It's tight. I'm telling you, that was a heck of a lot less work than tigging and welding and sanding and polishing some more. But I'm going to send this along with the amp, the old lid, just in case someone's got a use for it. I don't. Just one more thing sitting around here. So, on that note, a completely, perfectly restored TX800. It's been thoroughly gone through and checks out, and everything on this thing works just the way it should, and it kicks ass. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to ask, I think $1,200 for this one, because it does have the Toshibas, and they're all a match set, and they're all original, and the internals are in such good shape. I feel that that's a decent price for this insanely rare amplifier at this point. So, because they are getting rarer, and they're getting really chopped up. So, anyhow, I mean, even if you don't want to pay that, make me an offer if you're interested, and call me or text me, and we'll get back to you, and we'll get her squared away. So, on that note, gentlemen, I got to run. Big shout out to Siglant, Excess Power, MechMan, Bird, Coaxial Dynamics, and I got another one coming to the list here pretty quick. I just got to call them back. So, on that note, I say thanks, gentlemen. You'll find out what I meant by that comment here in a little while. I appreciate every single one of you. Big shout out to my guys here on the Patreon group. All right, the patrons. Appreciate you guys, and I appreciate all your patience this last week. I will see you. Click, click.